in which you would think of an ocean sunset to make your mind nice and spacious, as opposed to allowing the mind just to always be making us miserable. But be creative. Take some power back from the mind's tendencies and put it into living the life that we want to live with not the external objectives. I just wanted to say that so far, great job. And especially if you're newer to this, I know in Life Force Academy, all over we have lots of new folks who are here this week, and then maybe also here in Nevada City. Anyways, it doesn't really matter, because the main thing is that none of the physical parts of the practice are ultimately all that hard. It's not what makes the practice difficult. If you're not used to lifting your rectal sphincter, then it will take a few times before you get the hang of it, because those are muscles we have to tone a little bit. But it's just your pelvic floor. Anybody who works out knows how to work with their pelvic floor. And in a very similar way, you're using that same idea in Kundalini Yoga. When you're working out, you need it as your foundation so you don't injure yourself and so you can build strength in a proper, balanced way. Also the same is on the pranic level, which is what the yoga practices are also into, building strength. But the emphasis on it is pranic strength, or life force, magnetic strength. And that also adds to physical strength, and physical strength is also a part of it. But it's not the primary emphasis, you see. Because when you're working at the level of the life force, you're giving not only strength to the body, but then strength to the mind. Yogic practices are fantastic, and just learning how to work with yogic practices and how they work with the mind and transformation of mental patterns and open up the heart of love and devotion and cause somebody to live blissfully. When you know them, then you can apply them to all the other aspects of life. So then I do go to work out, then I can turn that into a yoga. Even at the gym, you just need maybe some earbuds. But not even. If you were me, you would. You'd have to black everything out and you'd go into a sound current. You go into some other state. You can be out, like sometimes I am, don't tell anybody, out on the golf course. And you turn that into a yoga. It works excellently like that. So our relationships, those become also a yoga, unfortunately. Because what happens in relationship is that, as effective really as anything else, all of our mental and emotional patterns are revealed to us, sometimes by our significant other pointing them out in one way, shape, or form, or just the presence in that type of kind of union, where in a certain way you're merging two individuals into one thing, which is like sometimes they call it a marriage or a partnership or a companionship. But in the case where it has some commitment around it, therefore it's represented, say, in the 7th house of the zodiac, as opposed to it's more of like a romance, which would be found in the 5th house of the zodiac. These types of ideas. So it's not, in other words, it's not saying good, bad, anything. It's just looking at the physics of life. We like to be in relationships. Generally speaking, we're social creatures. And we feel that yearning to kind of unite with another one. And not just physically, but also in this other bigger, important way. And so when there's a relationship, there's always 3 things. There's each person as the individual, and then there's the identity of the two together. And so that identity forms and grows and blossoms in the context of relationship. But what that can act like for each of the 2 individuals, and really this is the type of thing that like Tantra is all about. It's not just the sexual practices. In fact, that's the least important part, is the physical part of it. I'm not saying sexual practices are the least important part. What I'm saying is that which is physical, is more on the denser part of life, is the least important in the sense it's the quickest to change. What we're interested in really as human beings endeavoring to be happy is to blend and to merge and to unite with that which never changes, the constant. That's why we have our romances, is the love that goes on. It doesn't end. It goes on forever, infinitely. But our experience is that sometimes these romances are ending. But the fairy tale, and I'm not using that in a negative context, I'm just meaning it in the imagination of the human's experience, is infinite love. That's what we all want. And when you fall in love like that, it's an infinite fall. So the advantage of the relationship being a yoga is that even if the physical relationship comes apart, when living in such a way, it's going to cause a person to blossom in all cases, because we're going to keep more and more becoming ourselves and be less needy with one another. To unite means to actually love the other. And sometimes that might mean setting them free or setting yourself free. Sometimes that's the case. Sometimes things do run their course. And sometimes they don't. Everybody's story is totally unique. There's not one way it goes. Everybody has the heroic journey, some sort of mythological journey. That's what's so beautiful about looking at it astrologically, is you can start to see kind of the mythological principles that are active in a person's life. And it's way more cool and fascinating and subtle than the narratives that are so often on the surface of our mind. The way that we're kind of attached to how we wish things would be. But things are how they are. When I can start to develop the trust for things are how they are, and therefore a trust in the kind of natural way of things, the Tao, then I start to live in more of a bliss. And that bliss can go both into the joy and pleasure realm, and that bliss can also go with you into the hell realm. And by the hell realm, I mean when you're having the worst time, when your heart is totally broken. Has anyone ever been to that realm? In the moment, it doesn't feel good, does it? But when you go there with bliss, in other words, when you go there with love, the type of love that isn't, it has no particular objective. It exists without another object, another person. It exists as love itself. It's the fabric of our being. And so when we're able to more and more, that's what yoga practice, meditation practice is so effective at cultivating, being more and more able to kind of hang out in that space naturally, because it's who we are, it's what we are. It's not some far out thing. You feel it already all the time. Like here where we live, you can go down into Yuba River Canyon and stay for 30 minutes or more. You're going to get there. You're going to feel amazing because it's Mother Nature. We are part of her. This is part of us. We're not outside of nature observing her. We are her. This is us. And then to lose that perspective is what the Buddha would call ignorance. Not ignorance as you're a bad person, but ignorance is that we can't actually see clearly. Why can't we see clearly? Obscurations of the mind and all the narratives that it produces. So the practice of going into the central space of the organism, of the psyche, what the yogis called shunya or shunyata, zero means 0 point. There's some sort of kind of neutralization of the psyche that takes place in the meditative state that somehow really feels like as if it recalibrates everything, including one's perspective. And so if we're living in the dense world where the ups and downs are always crashing as our primary reality, because we are one part dense, you can touch. Dense is a relative statement. Your body is more dense than your breath. True? That's all we're saying. The life force is more subtle than the breath. So there's layers upon layers of density and subtlety that make up the human organism. A thought is more subtle than the breath. Wouldn't you say? But what's more subtle, thought or life force? That's a good thing to investigate. Yeah, you just see. It's not, you can get it wrong. Nothing bad happens. It's not a test, But what it is it's a kind of investigation of one's own architecture. And that's helpful because when you're connected into the subtlety of life, akasha, then one gains the ability to transform their mind into a truly happy mind. But on that great journey, of being able to hang out in that space a little bit more and more. It's very natural. I'm not trying to make it some far out space that somebody's hanging out in. This is the main thing to be for me with all this is it's ordinary. There's an aspect of it that it's ordinary. There's an aspect of it also, especially at first, that feels extraordinary because it's like, holy crap, you know? I didn't know I could do this. You know, I didn't know I didn't need to rely, on outside things in order to make myself happy. These are some ways of saying it. Or I didn't know I can actually get into the space where I can feel total confidence and feel total love and total connectivity. And we can. Yeah, it's not that difficult. It's not hard to run prana through a system and open up the channels. With a little bit of consistency, we can all easily do it. The difficult part, though, is the transformation of the patterns along the way. And so to open up the channels is fantastic. That's what we're doing. It feels good. Flush out the tissues of toxins, bring vitality to the tissues and organs. Feel good. Try to live, be vital. Stay alive. And then, as we do that, that gives us greater capacity because everything's lighting up. It's not just physical exercise, but it's life force circulating the chi through the chakras. Opens up the different kind of wheels of the psyche as they kind of poetically talk about them. I mean, one doesn't have to kind of believe that there's a wheel at the navel chakra and a wheel at the sexual chakra and a wheel at the root of the spine and at the top of the head and at the third eye and at the throat and at the heart. One doesn't have to believe that. It might be more fun. But the main thing is that these are not only scientific but artistic explanations, expressions, kind of teachings, not teachings that are designed to be doctrine, but teachings that are there to help guide the mind on the investigation of the self. The whole thing is based on your own experience. It's like, okay, and these are like, check, what about like this? And what about like this? And what if you were to think of an ocean sunset to make your mind nice and spacious, as opposed to allowing the mind just to always be making us miserable? But be creative. Take some power back from the mind's tendencies and put it into living the life that we want to live with not the external objectives all the time. I'm Capricorn ascendant, so I always have the external objectives to like be productive, make things happen, move, let's go. But to have the objective to have no objective at all is liberating. And then when the time comes, which is going to be shortly thereafter, where there is going to be an objective and there is going to be something to get done, you can do it really well. So that's kind of taking back one's energy in the sense of not allowing the mind to be too ridiculous, because we are not our minds. Yeah? But the mind has so much Shakti, so much power. It can destroy and it can create. And so with the idea of Kundalini Yoga, centralizing the chi in the nervous system, central channel, the central nervous system, we see it on the more dense level. It's subtle, much more subtle. Correspondent is what the yogis call Shushumna, the central channel of the spine. And it goes from the top of the head down to the base of the spine. And of all the 72 major channels of the subtle body, it's the Shushmana that is most important. But it has two other channels that spiral around it. One is called the Surya Nadi, the sun channel. The other is called the Chandra Nadi, the lunar channel. One is masculine charged life force. The other is feminine charged life force. They spiral around the spine. Even in Western medicine, you see the catechus, which is this symbol of Kundalini. It goes back thousands of years. It's not a big deal. So much stigma around the idea of Kundalini. Kundalini is the most natural thing, but it's potent. So you have to treat it, with compassion and kindness. You have to treat yourself with compassion and kindness, because life isn't easy. Life, as much as it's full of joy and it's full of pleasure, it's also full of catastrophe and hardship, difficulties, suffering. So compassion is the key. Compassion is the thing that contains all of that. Starting first, self-compassion, I'm not here to improve myself. I'm not wishing you to improve yourself. You're already good, is my perspective. But to tune the instrument so that goodness can shine, that's what the basic idea is. Thanks for watching on YouTube. Best easy way to stay in touch with us. Hit the subscribe button here. You'll see our videos when they come up. If you enjoyed this one, hit the like button. It'll help more people see it, help the channel grow. I appreciate you watching.